Hello, everyone. It's Types. As always, joined by Uncommon Fossil on the Reasonably Effective podcast.
Well, glad to be here. Be looking forward to talking some Pokemon TCG.
Yep, and today we're not just talking any Pokemon TCG, we're talking both specifically Pokemon TCG Live as well as GLC. And this is because recently, as in was on Thursday, the GLC format was brought as the trainer trial in rotation. If you're not familiar with the trainer trials, they are, as I said, rotating. So every few weeks, it's not consistent. Although the schedule is announced at the beginning of every set. Does that include mini
Yeah.
sets, or is it like always, or sometimes, or how's that work?
Or at least every time I think the battle pass resets, which is some mini sets, but probably not every mini set.
Okay. So anyways, we have a few like rotations a year or whatever. And this current one right now, we have Gym Challenge for 5 weeks. It says it's like 6 weeks in one place, but I'm pretty sure it's 5 weeks. Anyway, so if you're not familiar with the format of GLC, the full format, it was created by Andrew Mahone, a YouTuber of the channel Tricky Gym, and it's a format where you have only one copy of every card, so it's singleton. You have one card, or your cards, your Pokemon are all one type. Then also you cannot have any rulebox Pokemon, so no EXs, no Vs, none of that. And then also, it's the full GLC format is supposed to be black and white on. But in Pokemon TCG Live, of course, the black and white and X and Y era cards aren't implemented, so instead it's just going to be Sun and Moon on there. There are also some bans, but the bans don't matter too much for this specifically.
Right. I mean, for the sets that they have in the GLC format allowed, the ban list is the same as the official ban list. Right. It's just the other cards that the black and white XY cards they're not banned as such because they're all out, and there's no A specs as well. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's true.
In things too, which obviously you'd like to have that in the deck as well. And I don't remember. Did you say it's like a singleton format, one copy of each card and one type of Pokemon? You can have different types of energy though, right?
Yes.
Within the deck.
Okay. And you can also, I said one every card except for basic energies. You can have as many as you want, again, of any types there. And yeah, so that means that the decks of the same type have a lot of similarities, but not necessarily. You can have a deck that is, for example, lightning that is focused on doing big damage to the active, and you can have a deck that's based on lightning, built around spreading damage around and things like that. So again, for the most part, most of the decks of a certain type are relatively similar, and talk about how the different types differ a little bit, and how they have a lot of similarities as well. Which honestly, so I played a few of the I haven't played every type this current form. I did make a video. If you didn't see this, check it out. If you're looking for a deck list specifically, which we're going to talk about this, we do have a deck list of every type to play in Pokemon TCG Live. But a lot of the types, in my opinion, felt similar. I come false. You haven't played as much GLC as I have, right? But you played some certainly here.
Right, I've done some. I mean, you were playing GLC from the beginning, and you dove in pretty hard at first. You kind of probably backed off some, but you certainly have a good background in it. I played a little bit. The tricky thing is with these alternate formats is just kind of figuring out what cards you need, and the singleton particularly, because to get those trainers you need, how do figuring out what the staple trainers are is one of those things to figure out. And then if you find deck lists, the only deck lists you can generally find online are with the full expanded format. And there's a number of good supporters for all the decks that you're going to have to cut out. Sometimes not so much the Pokemon usually, but the trainers are the bigger thing that you lose, I think, with the truncated format.
Yeah, and we're gonna kind of go down. There are some general ones like I mean, Teammates is just like a generally good supporter. You can replace it with something like Rosa or Raihan, but that's in a lot of lists anyways. So ultimately, there are replacements there, but they're like, a little awkward to find. It's also difficult for people who aren't as familiar with the expanded format or the expanded card pool,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, or if you like haven't played it during that time, then it's you don't really know what the cards are, versus in like singleton standard, where even if you haven't really played with some of the cards, you have been exposed to a lot more of the total card pool than here, where there's like a lot of weird stuff that a lot of people just don't really know about. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I played enough expanded that I'm pretty comfortable. Like a card like floatstone, I'm used to that, and then I know, like you got air balloon as the general, let's say the initial go-to replacement. Things like versus seeker those cards. But it's the cards like teammates as such, and there's some other cards that most standard, most just general expanded decks you're less likely to play. But there's certain cards for these, especially non-rule box singleton formats. There's certain cards that go in that you don't see a lot of play outside of. So that's where it's trickier for me, where my lack of experience makes the deck building a little harder.
Yeah. Also, you played teammates and expanded, right?
Um, I
Played a
did,
bad
yeah. I
party,
remember.
certainly.
Yeah, I remember because back with Pokemon TCG Online, have working to get a card like Teammates. So yeah. So I have familiarity with some of these cards. Yeah, single prize decks I do like. Certainly Mad Party I played a bunch. So therefore that also helps. Having played some single prize decks helps get in the right mindset for this.
Yeah. Also, I will say, obviously, this format isn't fully implemented on Pokemon TCG Live. Um, Again, there are some missing cards. There aren't like an absolute ton. I'd say it's more meaningful than expanded because with Singleton you have less, or you need more different cards. So you need a larger selection to have decks of that are still consistent. But ultimately, with oh yeah, Pokemon TCG Online was when the client when GLC was created, and GLC was created to be working on Pokemon TCG Live, or sorry, on Pokemon TCG Online, the previous one, which had
Right.
expanded friend matches, or it had unlimited friend matches, which were essentially expanded without the bans. There was a few other cards, but ultimately that's not the case anymore. So you can't play this with friends, except kind of can, which get to.
Well, well, yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, a couple live things before we get there is you can't actually build these deck lists when it's not when this is one of the trainer trials that rotates. They keep expanding the amount of time GLC has because it's more popular, which is a good thing, I think. I think it also helps when it's around for more weeks because for me, I'm trying to figure out GLC, so it gives me more time to figure out a deck and work with it, or a couple decks. So I like the expansion to less things for longer time. Um, and I lost my train of thought, so I was setting something up. So anyway, I go back to you.
Yeah, just having the more time is obviously useful for like familiarizing yourself with the format. Having repeating is good. Versus some of the other what are the other formats for this trainer trial schedule? We had the Mega Singleton Showdown, which I think was not new. I mean, it's like probably I would not be shocked if it's here for all the Mega formats, but I'd say it's pretty
And
mediocre. Um, then also what was I gonna say? It's also somewhat similar to Magic the Gathering's Commander format, a very popular alternate format of a card game. And then also GLC is as well. GLC was like kind of based off of it. They both have a lot of differences from that other format, but GLC can do some fun casual stuff. And this we'll talk about. I thought people were going to take it a lot more seriously than they were. I mean, there isn't ranked, right? There's only casual.
there's only casual, and by the way, you've dropped that a little bit a couple times,
Oh,
so we'll have to. Hopefully, that is not a problem. I don't know if it's because you're running live at the same time, because that taxes
yeah,
the
maybe I'll
resources.
maybe I'll,
I'll
I'll
just
shut that down.
point that out. But the other thing I was going to say is the way it is, because with the trainer trials being rotating, the only time you can actually build a GLC deck is when GLC is the active trainer trial. It doesn't let you. Because the ban list is different than expanded, yes, you could build an expanded deck in a single format and kind of ignore the bans. But then there's other cards that are banned that you probably want in these decks, such as Scoop Up Net, that you'd have to put some other cards as a substitute and try to remember it. So it's awkward that you can only build a GLC deck during limited time periods. It'd be nicer if you could build it whenever you want to get ready for things.
Yeah, some of the formats like Mega Singleton you can, but not here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of bad. I mean, I think you can import a deck, so you could build it in a different program, and then you can import it, and then you can have like an illegal deck in live, but you can't like add illegal cards to a deck. So it's really weird. Um, yeah, but anyway, so there's
Yeah.
some wacky stuff that with that, but that doesn't really. I mean, it matters some. I don't know how. I mean, I guess it matters like if you're like, oh, I want to play this format, and you can't really build a deck. You can't build a deck like right before, which is
Yeah.
annoying. But I think we should talk about the starter deck, which is oh, it just closed live. Can you send it to me on Discord actually, and then we'll talk about
Um,
it. or unless you don't have it
Uh,
opened.
I have a visual deck list. I don't know if there's a
Oh,
way I can get you
sure,
that
just
though.
send the image to me. But
Well, I
anyways.
can't do that because I can't get it on one screen,
Oh yeah,
right?
'cause it's not. Ah, that's true. Well, anyways, I know some of the cards in it, so we'll talk about it here. The card.
Here, why don't you let me run through it because I have it here.
Okay, okay.
And you get a lot of alternate art. So the Pokemon, it's a 1/1 Dodrio line. And I certainly love Dodrio. For 1 energy, builds up damage and gets you a little bit of draw. There is the Archeops line. I guess it's a 1/1/1 Archeops line, although the basic's a fossil. So I don't have, we count that. We've got, what's this one? The Dunsparce. Part of it, everything's these alternate arts too when they could, which
Oh,
is
you said
nice,
you
but
you
I
knew
don't.
you could read the cards.
Oh, yeah, but I have to if I want to make it bigger, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway, there's the licky licky. I'm
yeah.
not sure what that one does. I don't know if that's the right name or not. But one more Babero, which is very nice. For a giraffe, I don't remember what this guy does exactly. Talon Flam, a Bouffalant, a Snorlax, a Kecleon. There's too many Pokemon, I think. A Drampa, Audino, and Fanrotom. Oh, and a Rangaroo. So it's a lot of Pokemon for what, 8, 12, 16. There's like 20 some Pokemon in the deck, which I
Oh,
think is too many, or well, it's close to 20.
okay. That's like
So
a little high. It's not like horrendous, but it's higher than it should be. Also, so there's a lot of weird cards in the deck. There's some that people are familiar with, and if you look at like GLC and a colorless list, so I'll quickly go over what a good colorless list looks like. This is not a horrendous deck, the one they gave for free.
no,
Good colorless list is going to be playing something like a lot of basics. For example, Snorlax is playing. There's a really powerful Snorlax. The Snorlax in the list is one that draws, which is like not a bad card, but it's not as good as the other one because that's like one of the best attacks in the format. And then there's like another Hop Snorlax, which is a powerful basic. Um, and as well, like, I don't know how much I'm going to go into the different decks, but most of the decks revolve around of every type revolve around different basics that are just big in terms of damage. They're able to like take big one shots. They're a few energies, but you have acceleration to some extent. And anyways, you have like those. You have some like setup engine cards, which the deck does. It has. Does it play Barrel? It does, right?
it plays Babero. It doesn't play Squovit though, I don't think, which I think you might want in the deck to help complement it.
Yeah, and it plays a Rangoon. It plays Dunsparce and Doduo. It plays maybe a little much in terms of engines, but it's like um that's definitely makes sense. But then there's a lot of coin flip stuff. There's like Kecleon. Okay, that doesn't have synergy with the Glimwood Tangle, but Glimwood Tangle lets you reflip. It's just a bunch of coin flip cards, and I would say when coin flips are a little frustrating to go against. It kind of depends. It can be cool. I don't have an issue with people doing that. Well, okay, sometimes it gets annoying, but I'd say a lot of the time it can be fun and silly. That being said, it's fun and silly because it's not happening all the time. A lot of people have been playing this deck. Also, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so I've beaten every opponent, like I think by a lot that I played against. Um, and a lot of them
And that
have.
includes me, I think, too.
It does include you. We'll talk about that in a bit later. But ultimately, a lot of the opponents like have made pretty substantial misplays as well. One of my opponents literally didn't use Fan Rotom. They just didn't. I don't know why. It was in play. It was turn one. They didn't use it. And it's a card in standard. It's a card that most people know. It's good. Like if you read the card, like you should read your cards. People just read your cards. It's good. And they didn't for whatever reason. They just didn't use it. And they lost. Like they made a lot of misplays. If they had done it, they would have been like a good, fun, competitive game. That didn't happen. Um, and the coin flips don't make it necessarily easier. I've heard. I mean, Uncommon False, you said that Pokemon has officially said that they do coin flip cards to make the game more like have more potential for like a weaker player to win. Is that something they've said?
Yeah, I don't know that I haven't heard it directly from Pokemon itself, but I've heard other people that are like high profile people saying that Pokemon has said that they do it so that newer players can be more competitive with more experienced players by adding more luck to the game, which we may or may not like that, but I do think that kind of makes sense with what we've seen, right? That is kind of their philosophy.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. I kind of get it. Ultimately, though, the cards aren't very good. Like, it's better to give a new player a card that's always good as opposed to a card that's sometimes good. I mean, I guess theoretically you could like one shot anything, but like the attacks are still like expensive, and anyway, so the deck's like kind of bad. Um, then
Yeah,
it
hang on. Just yeah, so the Kecleon, if you're not familiar, is from what Surging Sparks, and it's got a expert hider ability that when it's would be damaged by an attack for your opponent, you flip heads, and if it's heads, then you flip a coin. Sorry, if it's heads, you prevent the damage. So I had a bunch, and this has been the deck, the starter. They gave us the free deck, which I do think is a good thing. We should talk about that in a minute too. But this has been probably maybe 3/4 of the time. This is the deck I'm running up against. So, of course, I probably would be less people playing if they didn't have this because that we'll have to consider that too. But you know, it's a lot of this deck. It's not the best deck, and it is a little flippy, a little coin luck based, and certainly not an optimized list. So, you know, little lacking synergy in some spaces, but it gets you into knowing some of the cards that you need to play, or might want to play like Rosa and such that you know you're not going to be as familiar with. So it's not a bad thing they did, but it's not the strongest deck.
oh, it plays Rosa. Okay, that's why I guess that's the one basic fire energy, which seems like it should have more. Because wait, is the Talonflame the one that needs fire? No, it's not actually, is it? Anyway, so yeah, there's like a lot of like kind of weird stuff, and specifically the Keklan. Also, I want to say not GLC. I think Keklan's a little underrated in standard. I haven't like actually played it, but it's like okay, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, this is like annoying, but it's not like good. It just extends the game, and it like it can lead to games where like the player, someone who's like new, just kind of sits around, doesn't really do much, but the game goes like really long. But it's not long because there's interesting decisions where you're slowing your opponent down because cool things you're doing. And it's not really like how the format really is supposed to feel. Like if it can have longer games because obviously you're all of single prizers, your decks have some consistency issues, which can be cool. But ultimately this isn't that. Also, I want another quick note. If you're having issues with consistency, maybe not. This isn't necessarily a quick note, but yeah, add more supporters. Supporters are good to fix consistency. I think supporters are just good. They don't need to be crazy draw supporters, but just like decent draw supporters that aren't Avery. Avery is bad. It's not horrendous in GLC, but it's also not that much better. I don't think I've actually seen in my relatively small handful of games. I haven't actually seen it used to discard Pokemon, so it's just a draw three.
Yeah, I mean, on the supporter comment, it's those kind of lower tier supporters that are probably the biggest cards that you need to add into GLC decks that you don't see normally, and those are the ones without GLC experience. It's hardest to know, right? Because even like I play expanded some and do enjoy it a lot, but it's those there's a number of supporters you need that you don't play in most expanded decks as well because they don't suit things as well. So it's those supporters that help you set up, right? Especially help you get cards, get Pokemon, right? And obviously, I think every GLC deck plays Ball Guy, which basically I don't know if I've ever put in a regular expanded deck. Other than some, right, there's some meme stuff that can utilize it, but it's like a really good GLC deck, and it's bad pretty much everywhere else. So, that's kind of the mind shift you have to get with going GLC format from other formats.
Yeah, I'd say there aren't too many of those cards. Like Ball Guy's the biggest one. It's kind of the face of the format. I actually don't think the card's like I'm lower on it than like other people. I don't think it's bad, but it's not an auto include in all my decks either. But yeah, I mean this is good. There's a few others, but I mean there's still like good supporter. Even if you just play supporters you're familiar with, like there's a lot of decks not playing Cynthia. I imagine that's a supporter that I mean it's been like common if you haven't played expanded or stuff like that, then you're not as familiar with it. But there's like a lot of GLC decks that don't play it. And if you just toss in like research, Iono, Arvin, just the top ones in standard, you'll get a good chunk of the way there. And if you look around, it shouldn't be too hard to find. But again, it can be a little awkward. And if you are someone who's not familiar with deck building or any other formats at all, then it will be a bit more difficult.
Yeah, that's kind of the good with these trader trials, but in the difficult at the same time. They're kind of about deck building, right? Especially the formats that don't really exist outside of the trainer trials. Obviously, GLC does exist elsewhere, so you can find lists on limit lists, but that includes the XY black and white cards as well. So you got to do some substituting, but you can get a pretty, you can get like 80 85% of the list that you need from that, and then make some substitutions. Even probably you can probably get 90% of the way there, I would think, from what you can find online. But the trainer trials, they're built around deck building, and I don't know what the percentage of people that like deck building, but certainly I think for both of us, we like deck building, and a lot of the people I think that probably would pay attention to our content, or and the things that we are, the other content that we're interested in, are interested in deck building as well.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's a little difficult. I'd say I've definitely seen people like newer players, struggle to build decks. I say, look at other decks. You want to kind of it's really fun to make something that's all your own and original, but looking at other people's
Yeah.
stuff is good. And then obviously there is this free deck here as well that you get, which we were talking about. And it is good to have the deck, a free deck, to let people get in easier. I would say it should be better. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it should be good, right? I think. It should be
Yeah.
not necessarily, again, not perfect, but it should be pretty decent. It should be pretty normal as well, I'd say. Um, it should, not be focused around a weird mechanic, especially when I think, as I said, I think all the decks pretty much focus around in GLC, or almost all the decks that aren't, I guess, control, which on control is particularly good. Or mill that you focus on like a big basic that like Snorlax, or I'm gonna quickly go through the types and see if every type has one. Um, let's see. So you have in Psychic, you got like Giratina or like Iron Boulder. Water, you got like, I guess Whaler's a stage one there, but you got like Kyogre and stuff. Fighting, you have Okidogi. Dragon, you have Dialga. Fire, you have the Entei. Fellis, you have Snorlax. Grass, you have Zarude. Lightning, you have I guess there's like Apicoco or something. Darkness, you have like Guzzlord. Fairy isn't a type, and Metal, you have like Heatran. So there are other ones. I just kind of like went with those on the top of my head, but those are all basics that one shot almost anything. They're hitting like 160 for 3 on a basic. Then most decks using some form of energy acceleration. You got like Malamar, Excalibur. Fighting, you're not really looking at as much energy acceleration. Dragon, you're not necessarily, but you can be playing like cards like Crispin and Team Turbo Energize as well to just have these decks that work efficiently, which can be cool. I feel like Uncommon Fossil, you like decks that are like big basics that are just like swing with hitting like decent damage and like tanky and stuff.
Yeah, no, I definitely like basic decks, and certainly in the regular standard format and such, that's rule box Pokemon. Here, you don't have that. The big difference is for the single prize big basics, they usually then take a lot of energies to attack, right? Whereas like in regular format, say something like NTV, which can attack for 2 energy and still do solid damage, is where I go to more. So in GLC, I think the big basics are then a lot of energy, so you need to do some setup work to get there. Which is a different change of mindset for me a little bit there.
Yeah, I guess it's like 3 energy. I'd say in some ways it's kind of similar to like say the Absol Kangaskhan box deck. Where you have these 3 energy attackers, or like what you can see in like walling decks, which again aren't like quite the normal decks. And big basic decks is standard. I mean, you have like Raging Bull. Use these like huge kind of combo-y decks versus with GLC there. It's like you get a little extra energy here and there by a turn to like get an attachment, which is interesting. I think it's fun. Kind of reminds me of the theme deck format. It is more explosive and powerful, I guess. It can be. I'll say like a lot of okay, as I said, all the games I've been in have felt very one-sided. I haven't really had any consistency issues. I mean, I haven't had literally what I want all the time or anything like that. But I haven't really had dead draws. I think I had one game where it was kind of sketchy, but my opponent was also like dead drawing. So it's this different like thing where in singleton forms, especially in standard singleton, it's about like establishing a threat that's kind of able to cut through all your opponent's Pokemon. Sometimes it won't be able to, but oftentimes you can have Pokemon that are not again knocking out like anything. Maybe trading one for one. Ideally, you're like getting 2 knockouts with it, and I mean ideally you just like knock out all their Pokemon. They can't really do much about it, but that's not very interesting either.
Well, I mean, if you have to get 3 energy, and if you can't accelerate, if it's taking you 3 turns to set up a Pokemon, you better not trade one for one, right? Because if your opponent can set up, you're in trouble. So you need to be tanking some hits somehow, probably,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's not going to be 3 turns. You have like some acceleration, right? You got like Crispin, Team Turbo Energize,
Yeah.
ways to search cards like that out, double energies, things like that. So, um, But like if your opponent doesn't have anything and you just have a big Pokemon and you set it up in 3 turns, you still could also win. Um, but ultimately, I think
Yes.
a lot of people, because of the deck building, I don't know, this form has not been very popular. It's been like not really popular. I will
It-
say, I've said this before, the overlap between GLC players, like full GLC players and live players is relatively low. I think live players are about generally like fast and fun casual games. Not necessarily casual, but like I don't know, like simple, straightforward. And then GLC, despite being like a fan format, it's not really in terms of the gameplay. It's not that casual. People take it pretty seriously from what I've seen, like very seriously. Um, I'd say more so than standard. There is at the high
yeah.
end, there's like true competitive standard, but GLC has. I mean, I think there's like obviously a lot of tournaments. There's obviously a lot of standard tournaments, but like a lot of GLC plays in tournaments, and or like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean GLC is people. Yeah, there's a lot of fans of it that are really, really big fans of GLC. And they take the deck building pretty seriously. It is in one sense it's a cat part of why it doesn't fit with live. Partly it's a supposed to be that casual sit down with friends thing where the games go because the games are designed to be longer. That's kind of more turns to kind of set up, and obviously you have to take six prizes because they're six knockouts because they're single prize Pokemon. It'll take a little bit more to set up, which is part of it. So it's intended to be a little more casual, sit down with your friends, which then that kind of doesn't fit with live as well. But also, but that doesn't fit in a certain sense with the extent that people take it serious, right? That there's a competitive aspect to it as well, and people are more focused on that. Then I think they will get upset by the fact that live doesn't have the full format, right? Because it doesn't have all the older sets in it. So if you're serious about deck building and crafting these top tier GLC decks, you're gonna be very frustrated when all of a sudden some of these great supporters that you are staples of your decks you have to cut out. And I think you're just going to be yes, you could make the adjustments and just make the deck a little bit worse, but still very similar. But I think you're going to find it frustrating if you're just going to be frustrated with all the time with the deck, saying every game you play, you're like, how come I couldn't have whatever that card is? You're not going to play the game so much. So it doesn't play. It's popular IRL GLC, but in the live world, even with the trainer trial. We're not seeing the amount of opponents. It's not as popular as I would have thought it would be within live.
Yeah, and also in terms of like GLC play, I like okay, so we like to kind of hit on live because okay, it has a lot of issues, right? We all know that, but
Yes.
I think the people there's some people who like don't play live who think it's like it's complete trash, as in like you can't play it, you can't enjoy it. It's gonna ruin your day all the time, and that's not true. It's something that's fun. A lot of
But
people do.
I mean, live was like that for a while, though. Unfortunately, for longer, it never should have been. It kind of hung in this state of being really bad. But it works most of the time. It works like it should, right? That's what you're
Yeah,
gonna say.
I mean, I'd say even when like it first came out, it was still like a lot of games would work. I mean, it was probably like 80% of games would work, or maybe something like that. I don't know. There have been times when it's actually unplayable. Um, but for the most part, it's like it's like it's just it more or less does the job it needs to do. It's definitely not going above and beyond, and there are definitely times it's going uh below. But
Yeah,
it is okay, and I think there are people who, and if you're playing GLC, because obviously live is mostly standard here, then if you like aren't touching live, and you just hear people saying it's like terrible, um, and then you have this assumption that it like is like not something worth playing, then you're not really gonna try it out. And it's not. It's something that there's reason to play, and a lot of people do it and enjoy it. It has flaws, but it has sides to it. For example, like the price, it's free, and you can like get the stuff really easily. You can't get literally everything all the
yeah.
time, but for the most part, you can get exactly what you want. So, um, yeah, I mean live. But if if you don't like touch it, and if all the other people you play with don't touch live and think it's bad, um, then you're gonna miss out on it. But yeah, as you were saying, also, so obviously, long story short, people aren't playing live GLC that much, and we can't find matches very well.
Yeah, I mean, I was like before the trainer trial before this, the Mega Singleton Showdown. It was I couldn't find opponents on a regular basis. I most of the time I couldn't. Like I was wanting to play it, and most days I would sit down. Okay, I'm going to do live now, and I would try to find someone on that. It wouldn't work. I would play standard eventually. So most days I couldn't find someone. Maybe trying a few times a day. I figured when GLC came, because I know there's a bigger fan base for that, it wouldn't be an issue. It was fine the first day or two, honestly, but now we're in what 4 or 5 days since GLC dropped, and honestly a good bit of the time, probably the third of the time, I'm having a struggle to find opponents where I can't find opponents. And I guess we'll say, because you had kind of alluded to it before, you can't do friends matches, but on multiple occasions we've played against each other by just sitting down and saying let's pair in now, and we find each other more often than not.
We
Unfortunately,
just
because
did
that
it
means
twice, like back to back, right? I think.
I think so. Yeah. So we haven't done it that many times, and it hasn't been that many days GLC's been out yet, but I've had other occasions where I couldn't find matches, so I'm pretty sure if we had agreed to try to pair at that time, we would have matched up as again with each other. Because I think there really isn't any. The only matchmaking is you request, then the next person that requests, that's your opponent. There's I don't think there's really any trying to do levels of ability stuff, which that's unfortunate too within live.
Yeah, I think maybe region. I don't know. We are very close, but if you're
Yeah.
like in like across the world, then maybe not. I'm not sure. Ultimately, this isn't something you should like run a tournament through. I mean, because specifically if you're running a tournament, a bunch of people would be playing at the same time and it not being able to pair into each other. I guess you could do
Yeah.
it where you actually have like an open tournament where it's like you have a bunch of people playing all at the same time. You want like a lot, ideally, as many as you can, because you don't want the same people pairing into each other over and over again. But then you could just have people all like playing at the same time, and then you just like post, or you like I don't know, you're not playing like normal Swiss pairing, but you are still playing against people in the
Right.
tournament. Maybe that's something else. I don't think that'll work very well, but it'd be kind of funny. Ultimately, I guess say down below in the comment section on YouTube if you want to see that. But um, yeah, that's not a good sign though, right? Like that you can't find matches. Um, and as you were saying, it's been an issue with the other trainer trials, and yeah, I think people are just don't care that much. It's not advertised very well either.
No, I mean, look, this is one of the few times they've actually given a deck for the trainer trials. I think they did it once, at least once before, but usually they don't do that. So, like you've talked about, if you're not used to deck building or alternative format deck building in particular, then you're just going to stay away from it. So, most players aren't going to try to do it at all because they're not going to build a deck. So, giving everyone a deck, that's a good thing. And I'm pretty sure I've said it before. I think there should be some, assuming they want to promote this, I think they do. Having there should be some special prizes within it. Obviously, programming is a challenge to them, but I think they could come up with something that's not too complicated to get off the ground. If you play, if even if you just play, if you play 5 games or you win a couple games, you get something. People like that stuff, so that would encourage play as well.
Yeah, maybe it's like a challenge that's like. I think they've done challenges that are play the trainer trial, right?
I think they did, but they haven't done that in a while. I don't think, right?
Yeah, I
I
mean
don't, I
like
haven't.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
but uh,
that'd be a good thing. Play a trainer trial, play a GLC deck, right? That's what they, that would be a nice thing to do.
yeah, or maybe it could be something that doesn't require you to do it, but it's like play a deck where all your Pokemon are one type, and or maybe like win a game where all your Pokemon are one type, or like I mean, it could be like or like play a deck without any EXs, or maybe that maybe just like play a GLC deck. You could play it in standard if you want to, but it's gonna be a lot harder. So it doesn't require you to play it because if you don't want to play it, it can be kind of frustrating. But I think that'd be pretty funny to do. I guess it doesn't necessarily direct people there. If you literally say trainer trials, it like makes people go to the trainer trials. But I mean, ultimately, I'd say the trainer trials are generally decently fun. I think we've kind of talked about them before, and they definitely had some misses. Um, I'd say the GLC is definitely one of the better forms. Playing with older cards is fun, because they're cards you're
Yeah.
not normally able to play with. If it's just a deck you could play in standard, but it's like bad, that's not so exciting. Um, but playing with I'd say like, what are your thoughts on playing GLC in terms of like the actual gameplay?
So it's First off, I'm not as familiar with the decks, and I have lists at this time. I've played some decks, and I've tried to build one or two in the past, more from scratch, which is how I understand the deck the best, right? If you build from scratch, you understand it, can play it. But they've been gone very badly because I just didn't understand how to build a GLC deck well enough. Then I've got lists from you, and right now I've got lists for all the types from you, and I played maybe 5 or 6 of those decks. I don't know them as well as I should, though, but I understand certainly the different trainers in the decks because that is pretty common. So, in terms of playing GLC, the tough part is setting up. There's times that the decks don't set up, and that is where the truncated format hurts it. But honestly, most of the time the decks have set up. I think when I also was getting decks not to set up, I think you told me they weren't like the best type. Like when I was trying the grass deck, I think that was one I particularly had trouble setting up with. But part of it might be that deck too isn't as good, so it's less consistent, can be frustrating. But it is fun, but I will say that my opponents, for the most part, are playing just the one free deck, and they're not often playing the game that well. So even on live in general, the level of plays is up and down. I will say, in GLC, it's probably even weaker than in standard format.
Yeah, I will say, like, playing against playing with like, or obviously, we want everyone to be able to play the game, and like
Yeah.
everyone has different skill levels and stuff. So if you're not good at play it, that's how you get better. You'll learn stuff. That's
Yes.
cool. If you have questions, ask us as well. We'd love to help you with that. Or if you don't, if you just wanna, I definitely recommend just learning by playing. That being said, if you're someone who's like looking just to have like, pretty much everyone, if you're playing this, you're looking, it is casual, you're looking to have fun, and realistically, you're looking to have a fair match. If you're playing against someone who is at a drastically different skill level, you're not really going to have that. Um, I mean, you could win. Again, the starter deck just doesn't really have power behind it. Like, it's not like it's inconsistent. I think it's decently consistent. I just don't think it's very
Yeah.
it doesn't have that like upside. Um, that being said, in GLC, a lot of as I said, the decks you're looking at these big basics, they have this upside, so you can kind of run away. Have you? So okay, we played against each other. As I said, I did beat you the games. We played against each other. You like didn't set up at all, right? You just kind of dead drew.
Yeah, and I think I was playing the grass deck both times that I had. And it just didn't set up. Like I basically had one Pokemon, and I often had like no trainers I could play or even energy to attach. So I was maybe attaching an energy. I was lucky if I could like do a poke for like 20 damage, then that would have been like a really good turn. So I was like so far I didn't set up. You got going, and you'd taken 2 prizes, and I had nothing set up. I guess I had like one more Pokemon. I was just like, I'm gonna scoop because there's virtually no way I could actually come back at this game.
Yeah, I don't know how you end up with a hand that had like no basics, no search, no draw, no energy, like to even like have like, and you had this like 7 8 card hand.
I
Anyways,
did get cards. Yeah, I would get cards like Field Blower, and I don't think I had any energy, and I didn't get. Yeah, I just had. I'd get no energy. I would get like Raihan and whatever, just the complete absolute worst set of cards to have.
yeah, but anyways, for the most part, that shouldn't happen that much. Again, if that you do find that happening, cut like tech cards, like
Yeah.
Field Blower for consistency. I mean, just in general in the Pokemon TCG, if you're having issues setting up, reduce the utility cards, the counter cards, add in more consistency, add in, I think, add in a second Fezifty EX or something. If things are really going that bad, it can be useful if you're finding yourself never like getting the stuff you want. So in standard, not in GLC. Um, and so I think a lot of people just, I don't know. I feel like, oh, so how have you been doing in your matches? Have you been like winning most of them, losing most of them? Except for though, obviously I know the ones against me.
I pretty much won. I won certainly most of my games except for you. I might have won all of them too. I don't remember. I usually set up pretty well. I think that it's like one game where I didn't set up well. I don't remember which deck I was playing, but it was probably, and that game sticks in my mind. I think they were playing the free deck, because and like you said, that deck actually sets up pretty well, I think, but then it doesn't have big hitters, so they actually were up. They got out to a better start. They were ahead. they got like a two prize lead, which could be tough, and I wasn't set up that well. But then I started getting things going, and then they stopped playing. But because
They could
GLC
just quit,
games are slower, well, they didn't just quit; they just stopped playing. They went
like
AFK.
AFK. Yeah.
Yeah, and but they had been playing. They had probably already spent like 15 minutes in the game. I had spent 10 minutes in the game, and then they just stopped playing, which is hard to understand. Why would you play that long? As soon as I went ahead kind of in the game, they stopped playing. I don't understand the mindset for that, right? I would either you keep playing most likely, or I would just concede and move on. But I was like, okay, but that's unfortunately how these online games go too, right? That I find in standard format and stuff that's not an uncommon experience. I seem to have that more than you do when we talk about it, though.
Yeah, I feel like it could occasionally happen. Um, yeah. Also, I will say, like, I mean, you don't have that much experience with GLC. I have like a bit more
Right.
than you, but we're not like crazy players. This isn't us like trying to flex. I think it's more so like, there just aren't that many different people playing. I mean, I assume I paired into the same people multiple times. I mean, other than each
Yeah.
other, we did that. We paired back to back into each other. Um, and just people, they were probably like, oh, what is this? Let me just try it out. And then they just get kind of like, don't do much, get obliterated, and just like, oh well, that's not so fun. Then just stop. Which again, I think the better deck would be better. Maybe some different options. Like in standard, you get like a bunch of choices, except that I'm missing some. I'm still gonna complain about that. I don't know where it went, but so you got like some. If you have some options of decks, and maybe it like kind of tells you what it is, as opposed to. I mean, like with GLC, when you open the format, you get like a pop up. That's not so inviting. Um, so yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of getting people to play it in live.
Yeah, I mean, if they every time the trader trial rolls around, I think they should just give us a free deck. It doesn't cost them anything, and to do it. It's a digital deck, and it's not like people are spending actual money to get these cards. So, and then over time, assuming they could do GLC, every 2 months. That's about what the cycle is when things reset. You start to get multiple decks to choose from, and then that feels good. You can kind of go back to a deck as well, because things don't change as fast, obviously, in a format like GLC, right? Because it's going back so much in card pool. You can now, you add your Lily's Determination in to your deck because that's probably pretty good. But if you kept the rest of your deck the same, you're probably okay with it too. So therefore, we can kind of people can make that small adjustment that's needed to keep old decks viable as well. That keeps you from having to learn a brand new deck. So I think giving free decks on a regular basis would be good to help kind of get people into the swing of GLC.
Yeah. Also, I think it'd be good if they gave more than one deck free. If they gave like two, make sure it's not like one's weak to the other. But then you have different things to try out. You can experience
Yeah.
the format. Like experiencing one deck isn't experiencing I mean, it can kind of be experiencing the format, but it's not really the full picture. Um, you just know how that deck plays versus if you play two decks or I mean, the more decks you play, the more you can experience what a format is, but you can know what decks do that's similar to each other, what decks do that's different, and what things you should expect from every deck, and what things are more niche there. So I feel like I feel like the format is like relatively fun, in terms of you can do some like kind of weird stuff. A lot of the decks aren't super weird though. I do wish, again, it is kind of like a weird rogue casual format, but in some ways it feels like, I mean, the decks to me feel similar. I don't know. Do you agree with that or do you disagree?
Well, one of the tricky things with GLC with someone that doesn't do GLC much is I'd also, besides what the trainers are you need to build a deck, I don't necessarily know what the Pokemon do, right? So it's a bunch of work for me to when I have a deck list just to learn what my cards are, right? When I have probably, out of like the 16, 18 Pokemon, 10 of them might be cards that I've very, very rarely have ever played before. That means my opponent's deck, I'm not going to know what most of their Pokemon do. So it makes the game tougher. So you have to kind of like that challenge to want to play GLC. I would say, right? You have to like experiencing new things, which is part of what's a lot of fun. I think for both of us, that's what part of what makes this all exciting. But for people that want to want to master one thing in particular, than seeing new things, do they, GLC is less appealing as a starting point.
Yeah. Also, and like that's the same thing for me where I'm more familiar with GLC. it's less new, and I like the trainer trials because they're new. Um, a lot of them don't feel super, again, exciting, but I mean, I hope they do more stuff with them. I think the trainer trials are a good idea. It's something that Live's done that's good. Ultimately, I think the fact that GLC doesn't have every card isn't not a huge issue because in terms of like the actual format, you can like do most cool things. You can't play like Hex Maniac, which is like a card. I don't even like Hex Maniac that much. It's kind of annoying, but it is good and add some nuance to the format. But same thing like Versus Seeker. Actually, I do like Versus Seeker, but there's some cool cards you can't play. But there's a lot of cool cards you can play. You can play most of the cool cards. The older cards are a little more weird, so if you're looking for some cool stuff, you're gonna lose some of those like interesting interactions. But for the most part, you're able to do the stuff you're looking for. So, but it does make the format. It's like a blemish on the format, like a very substantial issue there. In terms of like, oh, this is. It's not like, oh, we're just not gonna do this, or because like they don't feel like it or whatever. Or oh, we just wanna do something different, or if like if full expanded wasn't in the game because they were like we just don't like really want to do it, we want to kind of move the game more modern, and that's why GLC was different. You could disagree with that, but there's some reasoning, but there's not a good reason. I mean, there's a reason, we all know the reason. It's because they can't do it, then I can put in the money, etc. So that's a little disheartening, and that translates to
Yeah.
the format.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's let's say you like playing dragon type, the fact that there's not double dragon energy is a huge downside, right? And you're going to be moaning over that every time you play a dragon deck, or you're just not going to play a dragon deck. You're not going to be happy about that either. I will say, in terms of the missing the black and white XY, when it comes to full expanded, not where you can play four copies like normal of cards. I don't mind the truncated format. In some ways, I think it makes it better. I think we have enough cards. Plus, you're playing four of, the decks can be consistent enough. And we're missing some of those super strong cards, like not having Battle Compressor, not having Versus Seeker, which are great cards. Don't get me wrong, but actually not having those in expanded in some ways makes things a little more balanced. I think. It tones it down a little, but for a singleton format like GLC, you need those extra cards for consistency. So I think what happens is the decks are just less consistent. In obviously a single format, it's a little less consistent anyway, but then it's not as consistent as you're used to if you're used to the full GLC format. So therefore, it makes the games a little less enjoyable, right? Like if decks are you can't set up like another say a bunch more often, you're not going to like playing it as much, and you're not going to want to sit down and play GLC as much. So I do think the truncated format hurts GLC. That is a big factor, I think here.
Yeah. In terms of actual cards, like in terms of supporters, there aren't really many, I don't think. Are there?
Obviously, versus Seeker is a big deal, but you know, you probably play Battle Compressor to pair
I
up with
don't
that.
know.
Teammates, Floatstone's obviously a staple.
Wait,
You'd
sorry,
put
wait.
that,
Yeah, I feel like Battle Quest is a little more situational. Um,
yeah.
or a
It
bunch.
works well with It works well with Versus Seeker though. Versus Seeker is a staple.
Yeah, but like Battle Quest are working like two cards that work well together for the most part is I mean you might see that with like Tag Call Guzman Hala, and then you kind of toss in Sith and Caitlyn, which is like quite good. But and Guzman Hala is like super good in GLC. And expanded. It's like kind of crazy and expanded. But anyways, like those cards, those like two card synergies are a little that they can't be searched for the most part are kind of sketchy. Like Battle Compressor is kind of it's not like horrendous without Versus Seeker, but like it's really good with Versus Seeker. Um, but again, it's like it's situational without it. So I feel like that's unless you're looking for other synergies, it's kind of sketchy.
Yeah. Well, you would play if you could, you'd put Versus Seeker basically in every deck though, right? That you
Yeah.
don't need Battle Compressor to work for that. So you'd play that. Floatstone's a great card. Yes, Air Balloon works for that for the most part, but you'd rather have Floatstone, right? That goes on every deck. Teammates for these single prize decks is an awesome card. Right, if you're not familiar with it, I called if your Pokemon's knocked out during your opponent's last turn, which of course single prize decks that you're going to have that meeting that criteria a lot more often. Search your deck for 2 cards, put them into your hand. So just any 2 cards, no type restriction. Super awesome card there. So I mean, I will like my go-to. A lot of decks don't play Raihan, so Raihan might maybe one of the cards I'd replace that with, just because that looks for 1 card, accelerates energy, which gets some overlap. Otherwise, it's things that are more type specific. But obviously, a card like Teammates, you're going to put in almost every deck as well.
Yeah. Also, those effects like aren't super unique though. Well, some of them are. Versus Seeker, I say, is relatively unique, um,
Yeah.
because it's almost like a search card. It like gets you a supporter of your choice. You can't choose from anything. We can choose from any supporter in your discard. Something like Battlequester is going to be unique there. And then also something like Hexmaniac is going to be unique. Something like Teammates is a little unique. Searching for anything, it's really powerful. But the rest things kind of similar to that. And then also in terms of was the oh there's also the Stadium. I'm blanking out. Well, there's Silent Lab, but
Oh yeah.
the one that shrinks the bench. I can't remember the name. Parallel
Oh, that shrinks the
City. Is
bench.
that right?
Oh, Parallel City. Yes.
Um.
And we also don't have the card that expands the bench, right?
Yeah, Skyfield. Yeah, I don't know
Skyfield.
how
So that
much that's played. I'd say the ones that are more because Skyfield's like really good in some situations. I really like it. It's a really cool card. And
yeah.
Here's Your Own Depth doesn't do anything. So, um, but that's like a more build around thing. So with the build around card, that's kind of sketchy. Unless the card's absurd, like Double Dragon Energy. But anyways, like a lot of the like Floatstone, yeah, that effect's like very replaceable. Even though Air Balloon, like you might want that and Air Balloon, but you still have stuff like the like U-turn board, which you see in Dax, and
Yeah.
skateboard, and if you're playing like Jirachi and Metal, the one that puts itself to sleep, things like that, and you can still get like good value, and then you're actually playing more interesting cards. Like if you just don't have the most powerful option, I'd say U-turn board is like a cool card, and a skateboard, and like having these slightly more weaker but more utility options is pretty fun in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think in full expanded sometimes those get overpowered. I don't think it makes these decks overpowered. There's also the item card that you get 2 special energies for the discard pile into your
Oh yeah,
deck,
special
or,
shards.
or
Yeah,
is it
that's what I missed. Yeah.
which is a really good one as well. And a lot of these decks do play special energy, so that's a super powerful card there as well. I think you already said it though. The problem is the reason we don't have these cards is because Live just can't get the program to work right. So therefore, the reason for it is in some ways more frustrating than the actual loss of the cards, right? But the reason behind it is the more frustrating thing.
Yeah. Um, Again, it is a format. I highly recommend you try it out if you haven't tried it out. I imagine if you made it this far into the podcast, you've tried it out or are likely to try it out. But yeah, I mean, it's cool and recommend it to other people as well. I think it's something that most people can enjoy. And probably give them a list. As I said, I have some on my channel, on a video where I made a list of every type. But you can just find them online, and just like adapt them a little bit. They don't need to be perfect. Lists I made are not like I put Reset Stanford on a lot of lists just to kind of replace Hexmaniac. Is that a good replacement? I don't know, but it's a person I decided to go with. And I mean, overall, it's cool, I guess, but it's also just not something that I think is quite where it needs to be either.
Yeah, look, first I would give GLC a try. Either if you haven't tried GLC, give it a try. You do have the free deck, so that's something to start with, or take a look at 10 Types channel, which has deck lists there. I'd like to do some. The other thing is it's fun to do, and also if you're a GLC player but don't want to do it live, do give it a try. See how you like it. Partly because I'd like to see more players too, because like in the last couple of weeks, I had wanted to do a video, say on the Mega Singleton Showdown. I had a deck I want to do on that, and for like 3 or 4 days in a row, I couldn't find anybody to play with. So I just was like, all right, I'm not going to make the deck for first. I can't record gameplay. And then, of course, it's like if I make a video, there's really no audience for this as well. But mostly I would like to have been able to play it, and I certainly want to be able to do GLC. And there are more players in GLC than the previous trainer trial format, but it's still not the level it needs to be. So also, if more people play it, it will encourage Pokemon to put more effort into this side of live too. So it's I think it's a win all around if people play it and if they're enjoying it, right? So if you haven't tried it or you stayed away from it for a bit, come back, give it a try again, see how it is. And if you haven't played it before, understand it's less consistent. Even with full format, it's less consistent. Don't feel like if it doesn't set up like a single prize deck, you got to scoop immediately. Things are slower. Take some time, let it develop, and see where things go from there.
Yeah, and as I said, if you have a lot of consistency issues, put in more supporters. It'll make your deck slower, but you could toss in like 10 draw 3 supporters, and it'll. I mean, just playing a support. Okay, don't do that, but you like could. I just want to say that it's like not. There are a lot of better supporters. Even Avery, it's better than draw 3. Specifically in GLC, in expanded that card or the standard that card so bad. But anyways, yeah, that you can put in support like Cynthia. Most lists don't play Cynthia. Cynthia's shuffle draw 6. Is it broken? No. Is it good? I mean, that's pretty good. It's gonna be good enough for what you want. Research. Play like Carmen. Carmen's good. Play Judge. Play just whatever.
Yeah.
Play just like some weird like play Gym Trainer or whatever it's called. The one that draws 4 if you're knocked out last turn. Like these cards aren't super good. But just chucking them in. Playing a supporter every turn gets you further. It feels like even if you're not doing something amazing, doing a supporter like feels like you're getting further into the game, which is just fun. Again, you might just get like outsped all the time. So I'd say the decks are a little boring, being very basic focused, but like they still have these like interesting engines. Each type has like different things going on. Some types have more focus on energy acceleration through like stage 1. Some are like really big with stage 2s. You got like Rillaboom or Baxcalibur. Um, and some are like as those ones with the stage 2s are really energy hungry. Some have like Pelipper is a really cool card in colorless. That's a card in standard, which just doesn't really see play, but in a slightly slower format. Where having like powerful search, I mean, Pelipper is a really cool card in this format. So there's just a lot of really interesting things you can try out. And you're not going to love everything, right? You're not going to love everything, but messing around is really fun. Trying out decks that are pretty normal if you're not used to them is also really fun. So there's a lot of really cool things to see. Um, yeah, just try it out. Either you can try it out. Yeah, if you haven't played the full format, it's not really a great way to play it either. From what I've seen, most people play, I think, on webcam. I mean, people play IRL, right? People play IRL, but if you don't have
Yeah.
people to play with IRL, it's awkward. The decks are also, they're not super expensive, but it's like kind of supposed to be a budget format, but it's like not really. I mean, okay, so Tropical Beach in full GLC is like kind of good. It's very expensive. If you're not familiar, it's like absurdly expensive. I've said before, I think it should be banned because it's expensive. Is that a good reason? I don't know. I mean, I think it is, but I get why it's not as well. But on top of that, there's a lot of like older cards. Obviously, that's kind of the point. They're not super old and hard to buy as singles, but they are going to be harder to like. You're not going to find them in store. So if you open a ton of packs or whatever, you're not going to end up with a deck. You're not really going to do that with standard either, but you can like go buy some standard products and get some good stuff. Versus GLC, IRL, you don't quite get there. So I definitely think there's a reason why you'd want to play this online, where it's easier to get the older cards and try out stuff without having to like buy a bunch of singles. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of accessibility, obviously Live has its limitations, but it lets you get those cards, try things out. And obviously this is where if it'd be nice if it becomes a full-time format, right? So especially if you want to do it, then you can test things out and stuff, ideally, right? If you could full and do friends battles. But I honestly I think Live's gonna get there one of these days. I think they're gonna get full expanded. I think it's gonna be friends matches. And I think once they do that, I think the way the trainer trials are shaping up, GLC is getting moving to the top more and more. I think GLC is going to become the third format live one day down the road. So let us know in the comments if you think that should happen, and you can let us know if you think it's likely to happen as well.
Yeah, but anyways, we hope you enjoyed the episode here today, talking about GLC, and there's a lot of stuff to like about it. There's pretty questionable stuff as well going on with it, but I'd say it's kind of moving in the right direction, though it's also stalled a little. But anyways, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you, if you're watching on YouTube, you like and subscribe. And if you're watching on or listening on another platform, if you have comments, do leave them in YouTube. Because unfortunately, we're not able to see comments on other sites like Spotify or whatever. But you can still listen to us on other podcasting platforms. If you don't want to listen to us on YouTube, we have those options as well. And I guess you can like leave reviews or something. I don't know. I don't think we necessarily see them, but we might be able to. And on top of that, they do help recommend it. But we hope you enjoyed, and as always, we're excited to see you in the next episode.
Take care.